Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where, while things continue to be slow in Hollywood in terms of movie news, it would seem that Tinseltown is waking up just a little bit, and I was able to find 3 interesting stories for us to discuss today. However, I want to assure you, because I told you yesterday this was a great time to ask viewer questions, that you guys answered the call. I got a ton of great viewer questions yesterday, and don't worry, even though I'm only answering 1 today, I'm saving the ones that you did submit, and we will get to them. And today's, by the way, is from Egypt, which I thought was a lot of fun. All right, so let's get first to the stories of the day. And the first is that Jason Statham seems to have found a new avenue for his career in China. He's really gonna get involved with the Chinese film industry. Now, it's interesting because I thought that comedies would be his next big thing after his fabulous performance in Spy, but that didn't work out. And it would seem that Jason Statham, or comedic Jason Statham, unfortunately, is one of the forgotten casualties of 2016's Ghostbusters. You know, Melissa McCarthy went down, and unfortunately, Jason Statham's, I don't know why nobody else realized how funny he was in that movie and decided to utilize him. Who knows? But it doesn't look like we're getting a sequel to Spy, and Jason Statham hasn't been able to follow up his fabulous performance there. Jude Law was great. That was such a great movie. I'm upset with Ghostbusters for ruining it. But anyway, Jason Statham ain't going to let Melissa McCarthy keep him down, and he, as I said, has found a new avenue, and that is in the Middle Kingdom. Now, the Fast and Furious films are some of the most popular Hollywood films in China. In fact, they were one of the first Hollywood franchises to succeed over in China. And it seems as a result, it's made movie stars over there of the cast. For instance, we just talked about on Monday that Jumanji opened in China with 40 million, far more than Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Vin Diesel's XXX, The Return of Xander Cage, didn't do well anywhere else in the world, but in China, it made $164 million. So it seems that China also feels that therefore Jason Statham is of value there as well. We'll see. He has a film coming up this year called Meg, where he fights a prehistoric 70-foot shark that is a co-production with China and actually features a largely Chinese cast. And the female lead, in fact, is Li Bingbing. I'm very excited about this. I don't think Hollywood should just take China's money. I think they should try and work, with the Chinese film industry and try to, if Chinese, I'm such a big believer in entertainment reflecting the audience. So if a large part of your audience is Chinese, that should be reflected in at least one role in the movie. So we'll see how Meg works out. But of course, China feels this should be a two-way street, and that's understandable. And they think that their movies should do well in the United States. So, for instance, one of those first efforts was The Foreigner with Jackie Chan. That's for STX Entertainment, which, by the way, receives most of its funding from a Chinese company. And The Foreigner did okay everywhere. They're using it as an example of a success. I wouldn't call it that. But at least it's a step in the right direction. It's certainly better than The Great Wall worked out for Legendary Pictures, which also, by the way, gets its funding from China, although we'll see how much longer that continues. As I'm sure you've read, there have been some issues as to how long this Chinese funding will keep up, because China doesn't want all of its money heading out of the country. Again, understandable. And also the Chinese government, of course, is not as free as the United States government. But The Foreigner made 34 million stateside and 81 million in China. So that's not even huge by Chinese standards. But luckily, it was a really cheap film, only about $35 million to make. So they feel we're going to keep doing this. And STX, by the way, is part of this new deal with Jason Statham and the Chinese company Tenpercent. I'm sure you've seen their logo in front of a couple of pictures at this point, even out of Hollywood. And they're going to try and do another Jason Statham production, which is going to, again, be very much focused in China. We'll see how it works out. I don't understand. I think they can crack it eventually. I'm glad they keep trying. Everybody's holding their breath, wondering if the bottom will ever fall out of China in terms of not only investment, but also audience interest, right? Will they eventually, streaming become very popular there and they won't go to the movies as much? It's a different situation, though, because they have such a much larger population. Well, again, we'll see. But I think there is a little bit of a sense of borrowed time. Maybe that's one of the reasons that the Chinese film industry wants to start making money in Hollywood. They don't want to have to be totally reliant on, their domestic box office, just like we don't want to be. I don't understand why they don't use why they utilize Donnie Yen. We love Donnie Yen over here. I think he's such a fabulous actor. He was not only in Rogue One, did a great job there, and I think that helped Rogue One in China. But his Ip Man movies are fabulous. And they're making an Ip Man 4. I'm so excited. It's going to take place here in the United States. He's going to be training Bruce Lee. I think it's going to be great. I love it. He's kind of like a Bing Crosby / Jimmy Stewart type character in those movies. He does a great job. And he was in XXX too, but I'm talking like a co-lead, you know, not just like a little small supporting role. And I think that Donnie Yen is just I just don't understand why even Hollywood doesn't utilize him more. I'm sure Donnie Yen's annoyed about it too. It's tough out there. So I'm curious for this first story, do you think this is going to work for Jason Statham? Would you be interested in his Chinese films? I think Meg sounds really good. We'll have to see a trailer for it. I think Jason Statham, to be fair, is hit or miss. And also, do you feel sad that we never got full comedic Jason Statham, that he really only did Spy, and then he had to move on? All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now, the second story of the day is yesterday we were just talking about Stranger Things and how Millie Bobby Brown and David Harbour, you know, kind of are separate in their publicity, and then all the other kids are in a group, and that group includes Finn Wolfhard. And I said that Finn Wolfhard doesn't necessarily have to be in the group, and I think it makes him seem particularly nice that even though he's a little bit of a bigger star than everybody else, you know, besides Millie Bobby Brown and David Harbour, he still, you know, tries very much to be a part of the team. And of course, he was in It as Richie, but that was another team, right? Well, thankfully, Finn Wolfhard has gotten on the board. He just signed with a new agency, by the way, after the scandal about his former agent being, it was horrific, being a pedophile. But, you know, so he signed with, I believe, CAA, so he left that. That agent was fired, but Finn Wolfhard, you know, just totally left the agency, I believe, and ended up at CAA. Fabulous place to end up, one of the big agencies in Hollywood. And now he has a film that he signed on for. He's not starring. It's Ansel Elgort's movie. Ansel Elgort, of course, also somebody who's never really quite come into his own. He's a very good actor. He was great in The Fault in Our Stars, but he didn't really get too much off of that. He was supposed to maybe be Han Solo. I think they should have chosen him. They didn't. A lot of you thought that was a ridiculous choice until you saw Baby Driver, and then you understood that he would have been a great choice. And Baby Driver, of course, was a huge success for Edgar Wright and Ansel Elgort, but you know, the Ansel Elgort offers aren't pouring in still, which is interesting. And Edgar Wright really hasn't signed any other deals either. So I wonder what's taking so long for them to capitalize on their Baby Driver success. But this is what Ansel Elgort has lined up. It's called The Goldfinch, and it's about a boy whose mother is killed in a terrorist act at the Museum of, I believe, Modern Art in New York City by a bomb exploding. And he goes to live with another family that's also involved in the art world, and so he becomes very involved in the New York art world, both the legitimate and underworld art world. And there are two timelines, him as an adult and him as a child. And then also he's one of the timelines, I believe, is an adult looking for a famous painting. It seems super complicated. It seems very indie film-like, you know, an Oscar baity, which it's what it's supposed to be. And we'll see how it comes together. I don't have tremendous faith in it at the moment, like on paper, but I reserve the right to be impressed when I start to see some actual footage from the movie. So who is Finn Wolfhard playing? He's not young Ansel Elgort. He's going to play a friend of young Ansel Elgort, young Boris. So that means there's an older Boris, who we'll see soon, who will be cast to know Ansel Elgort, the Ansel Elgort version of the character. But young Boris is a Ukrainian student and troublemaker, so that means Finn's going to have to break out the old accent. Who bonds with young Theo, Ansel Elgort's character, over lost moms. They both lost their mother. And then he also gets Theo, Ansel Elgort's character, into drugs and alcohol. So he's like the indie version of Richie from It, basically. I'm curious to the kind of, you know, it's not what I think any of us expected the image for Finn Wolfhard to be after we first were introduced to him in Stranger Things Season 1. And he was kind of absent from Stranger Things Season 2. So he's taking on this new persona of almost like a tiny Jonah Hill, right? And I don't think being Jonah Hill has worked out so well for Jonah Hill. So I'm surprised that Finn Wolfhard would voluntarily kind of make himself a supporting comedic character where he was introduced to us as a leading man in many ways. So I guess this is where the opportunity has arisen. He is very funny, although I thought Jack Dylan Grazer was funnier in It. But Finn Wolfhard certainly has his fans. He's developing, I think, a little bit of a heartthrob status with his fan base, so that also makes this a little bit of a weird choice, in my opinion. But, you know, sometimes you got to pick out of the roles that are currently being offered to you. And I think with Ansel Elgort attached, Finn Wolfhard was like, I better take one of these before they stop coming in. So I'm curious, what do you think of Finn Wolfhard? Do you think he's on the same level as Millie Bobby Brown and David Harbour? Do you think this sounds like a good project for him? And just, you know, do you think the Jonah Hill comparison is an apt one? And would that be the career path you would pick for Finn Wolfhard? Once you're defined to audiences, it is hard to redefine oneself. All right, so anyway, that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story of the day is that Patrick Wilson is doing press for The Commuter. And as I've told you before, oftentimes when it's a small movie that's not going to drive a lot of traffic to the interview, what will happen is the press will ask you about something that will drive traffic to get people interested in the interview. And so one of the things that he was asked about over on Yahoo, I believe Yahoo Movies, was whether or not he would be interested in the Watchmen TV series that they're developing on HBO. I think Damon Lindelof, so that's scary. But still, it's a good idea. And I think that it was really wonderful that Patrick Wilson said that not only would he be open to doing it, but that he and the cast would be actually the appropriate age now to play those characters than they were, more so than they were in 2009 when the film was made. And I thought about it and I was like, and I looked at the entire cast list from 2009 and it was surprising, and I think a little unfortunate for them, that they're in the exact same place career-wise as they were almost 10 years ago when that movie was made. And that was it was a big deal movie. Everybody was very excited about it. And it was supposed to be a big break for a lot of that cast, and it just never materialized. Although the film itself didn't quite materialize as it was supposed to either. You think that would have been a warning sign as to Zack Snyder's abilities to deliver this type of product, right? I mean, 300 was a huge hit for him, but when you see how Watchmen goes over, I think maybe that was like, when you think about it, the warning sign, the shot across the bow. But again, I liked Batman v Superman quite a bit. So anyway, I think this would be, if I were the producers on the Watchmen show, I would be like, maybe we should do this. Because I think it's a good angle, reuniting the cast. They're certainly available. And it's hard to get better actors for a television show. I mean, I thought that the cast was a little bit meh for a movie, but it would be very difficult to get this for a television series. And in fact, that's where most of these actors are living successfully right now, on the small screen, if they're working at all. So I think it's a good idea, and I think that they did a good job. They did a good enough job in the Watchmen movie, and I think to invite them back and to have maybe better writing and a little better directing and more time to work on such a complex story, which you would have with a television show, could be a real winner. So I'm curious, would you be in favor of that, of bringing back the actors from the Watchmen movie for the TV series on HBO? All right, now on that note, TV versus film, I have the viewer question from Shady, aka the Nerd 101 from Egypt. So hello, greetings in Egypt there across the globe. Excellent. So Shady says, Grace, you always talk about movies being too TV-like and how bad it is to be a TV movie. Can you tell us when a movie is considered a TV movie and why it's bad for the movie? Hope you see my question. Been watching your videos for over a year now. Lots of love from Egypt. Oh, hello. So awesome. All right, so to answer your question, in my opinion, a movie is TV-like, and it's getting harder to use that label because TV has upped its game so significantly over the past few years. But a movie that's TV-like is one that just does not make enough of an effort, right? The cast is okay. The directing and cinematography are okay. The writing is okay. It just kind of seems to sit there and take your viewership for granted, right? And your interest for granted, rather than really doing a hard sell, being excited to tell the story. And a good example of that, I think, is what's happened with the Marvel Netflix shows. They started out, I think, very aggressive, but I think we can all agree that they have just, they're really kind of phoning it in recently, and at every level, I think, except for the acting. And I think they're even falling back on a formula in terms of the way the episodes are ordered in the character arcs, right? We all know when the twist is coming, we all know when they've gone for too many episodes, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the difference. So when you're watching something on a film, that's something that's supposed to be a movie or a TV show, any kind of entertainment, I think you really have to ask yourself, did the filmmakers do everything they could possible at this moment, in this scene, in this shot, to make it the best it possibly can be? And the reason that needs to be done, and the reason it's used to be film versus TV, is that, it doesn't warrant the price point if you're not going to make an effort to go and pay to see something in a theater. Whereas TV used to be free, right? You're like, oh, you might as well watch it. It's free. Now, though, TV is it's interesting because you're seeing a shift in the entertainment landscape. But now TV is very competitive, and also you've had a generational shift. For a long time, and that's why some shows are still popular, right? I think that's one of the things that keeps late night TV on the air. that there's a large swath of the population here in the United States that it's a habit of theirs to just turn on their, they pay for cable television, or that, some places in the country you don't have to, you can just get it over the airwaves, I believe. I don't know if that's still possible. But, you just watch what's on the network, right? Because it's free, right? You watch the commercials or what's in your basic cable package, and that's how a lot of those shows exist. But then there's this new generation of television viewers who are into premium streaming, who are willing to pay for it, because they want the 13-hour movies. They want to watch it in the comfort of their home. They want to watch it on whatever size screen they care, or maybe when they're commuting or traveling. They really, it's not so much like, it's not event viewing, it's when I want to watch it viewing. And that's a whole different kind of landscape, and that's what's led to the rise of Netflix and Amazon, and HBO, of course, was kind of like a predecessor to that, and Showtime, and they're still trying to very much remain competitive. And then you have Disney getting in on this, and Apple wants to get in on it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of where I think, so it's hard to differentiate between saying something's a TV movie. It's it's just it's a term that's becoming no longer relevant. But TV versus movie. So I would say I would maybe transition it to effort versus non-effort, right? Or free versus pay. And so that's really the distinction. And I think you really can't get away with this lazy entertainment anymore, because every area is just so competitive and there are so many options. But I'm curious, how do you feel about it? Where's the line for you and what constitutes like a movie and a television show? And what do you think of the changing landscape? I think that's very interesting. So anyway, that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please write down below, I think, today's top 3 stories, Shady's viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and of course, any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.